Our next speaker is Rahman, who is currently the president of the Sudanese Society in New Zealand, and will be speaking on the war of Sudan, which reaches its 1-year mark. Please warmly welcome Rahman.
Assalamu alaikum, kia ora. Ko Omdurman Sudan toko Fenwa, ko Nal Ta'awa, ko Jaliin toko Iwi, ko Rahman Bashir Tene Mihi. Tomorrow marks the 1 year of the war in Sudan, which in other ways is known as the Forgotten War. One that's yielded the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. And you know, I can share all the stats, and the stats are very wide-ranging, they're very deep, and they hurt a lot. But I feel like we're past that. We have more than enough stats everywhere. And I want to speak to the context of the war. So the past year is symptomatic of, I guess, the last 5 years and the fight for democracy by the Sudanese people. And it's important to acknowledge that while this, war is tied to the borders of one nation, this is not a civil war. There is no civilian element. The people rose in their millions in 2019. They rose again in 2021 in their millions for a peaceful path for democracy, and a democracy to topple the dictator of Bashir, who had led the country to astray for the past 30 years, like we've unfortunately seen in many contexts. Obviously, unfortunately, we've grown to learn that al-Bashir may be gone, but his infrastructure still remains and is, incredibly intertwined to the fabric of Sudan. With what we currently see in the leader of the RSF, Hemeti, and obviously al-Burhan and the Sudanese armed military. The Sudanese people are put in a context where you do have to support the lesser of the two evils. Unfortunately, the army is the same people we rose against in 2019, but unfortunately in this phase of the war, they are the only people that can actually alleviate us from this, drastic war that's, left everyone in shock. This is an unprecedented context for the country, and not a single Sudanese family here in New Zealand has not been impacted. The second point I'd like to speak to is the spheres of influence that obviously, as we understand with Palestine, this is an issue that's bigger than just a single state, that the wider spheres of influence will always maintain their hands and leave us suffocated. Obviously, we've learned in the Arab Spring, democracy is a huge fear for many of these iron fist leaders, and the revolution honestly brought it brought light to something that was so powerful, and that's people power, and how we can actually, get rid of these dictators. So the maintenance of military leaders, the erosion of democracy is a key pillar in the UAE and Egypt's role, and in a more suffocating and genocidal context, the United Arab Emirates in funding the RSF, the rebels. So I try not to take up too much time, but we've seen in the last 6 months politicians that have been here since the beginning, as we've noted with the Green Party. And we have politicians that have joined us, only in the last few weeks, 6 months into the genocide, promising for special visas due to the ethical and moral obligation. And what I will say to that is just be careful to what words you listen to and how you absorb it. And a quick story for us to tell is, if the ethical and moral obligation existed, they would have been consistent in how they applied it. For us in Sudan, we engaged with the highest echelons of a majority Labour government last year. We engaged with Foreign Minister Nanaia Mahuta, with Minister for Immigration Andrew Little, to ask for a family reunification visa for Sudan, for our whānau. We showed the numbers. We said that there will be no financial burden on the state. We will cover housing capacities, flights, everything. We just want to have the ability to bring our families here to have safety, just like they did for Ukraine. And now they obviously rejected us with not much dialogue, and that's why I find their call for a visa for Palestine one that doesn't have much integrity, and I would question if they were in power, like they were as a majority last year, they would not give us the option. So be careful, and just remember who are the ones that have been there consistently with us. Please keep Sudan in your du'as, in your prayers. Unfortunately, we've reached 1 year, but this is continuing, and many of us have a deep fear it will be a proxy war that lasts 6 to 8 years, and the same evil people still exist in power. But thank you for giving us space today.